Hey, let's get some light in here. Good morning, ladies and gents. Happy Thanksgiving, if that is your kind of thing. I know I got a lot of folks who like to watch from the not-so-American part of the world, and that's fine. That's great. But still, happy Thanksgiving anyway. Today is the day we stuff our faces with food. For me, I stuffed my face with code. I sit here and just like stare at things and get stuff done, and then I have tomorrow off, which is going to be awesome. It means I can get a lot of stuff done, game wise, especially with none of those pesky work obligations. Definitely, for those of you who want to make sure you don't miss any of the streams, follow me on Twitter. It's the way to make sure you don't miss a darn thing. So we've got a lot of these status effects we're starting to kind of mix in and mess with. I was tempted to do more of those, but I think today I'm going to do something completely and entirely different. And the only downside with that means I'm not sure how far I'm going to get, because I've only prepped so much of this. But I kind of wanted to get trap unlocking done, specifically when you're working with like treasure chests and things. Any object that could be trapped. So for me, that could be doors or chests. Those are kind of the two primary places you'll run into traps. I'm being sent silly things from a friend of mine who's looking at like weird Black Friday deals, not just like standard stuff, but like weird Black Friday deals. It looks like a cookbook named 50 Shades of Chicken. It's kind of terrifying. So, I have to shake my head at these. So, what are we going to get done today? So I want to get some kind of like being able to interact with the world around you, and some of that is going to be you walk up to a chest and decide to flick the darn thing open. Now, obviously, checking for traps and disarming the traps can be a fun little distraction from the rest of the world around you sometimes. So I really want to make sure that feeling of like the tension and the stress of, oh god, it's a chest, oh god, I don't have the key, so I have to do this the hard way. I really want that to kick in. So the two parts, I kind of want this to work something like a game of Mastermind. If some of you have ever played it, essentially for those who haven't played it, you have, I think it's 4 or 5 positions in a row. I think it's 4. And you have essentially empty spaces for pegs. And each peg that you put into a slot can have a certain color. And each time you fill up all 4 pegs, you ask the person who is, playing the game with you, is this correct? And they will tell you for each peg if it's the right color for that space, or they will tell you if that color exists somewhere in the line. So you could have your 4 peg colors, but you could have them all in the wrong places. And so you'd say, well, that's the right color, but that's the wrong space. This one's the right color and the wrong space. And these two are the right color and the right space. And what that means is you just have to switch these two and you're done. Right? You'd have a correct answer. It'll make a lot more sense when I start working on it. But essentially, I'd like to have a cadre of traps that have certain elements to them. And I want to make sure that each of the elements, when you try and disarm it, you're not just disarming the trap. You're disarming the parts of the trap that might try and kill you. So you essentially have to go through those one at a time and kind of pop them out of the system and make sure that they're not going to go off while you're trying to open the chest and get to the goodies on the inside. And then also we kind of need to get a chest that isn't trapped into the environment. That's probably going to be step 1. Is just a non-trapped chest that, by the way, happens to exist. And I'm just going to dump that in the middle of town just to make it somewhat easy to not only get to, but to handle. So, let's see, prefabs. I know I have this chest, but I don't know if this chest actually has... Yeah, I don't see any... I don't see any kind of animator on these. I just see mesh filters. And so I'm actually kind of tempted to go with the incredibly over-the-top, completely overkill chest. If only because I know it has an animator. I know how to open it easily. And I don't have to futz with anything extra. I love how I also can't type 180 without typing 1280. It's just like a reaction of mine. Okay, so we've got our awesome freaking chest that is off the grid by a little too much. I'm actually going to shift it there-ish. Okay, no, I just need to line it up with the middle of the screen. Or at least, yeah, that looks good. It also looks a little small, I can't help but notice. I mean, I'm going to try walking up to it and see if that's actually the case, but yeah, that looks a little tiny. Just, it's the cutest little chest. You just, for an epic chest, that's a little underwhelming in size, guys. Just a little. Let's see, maybe we can size this up without breaking everything. Because, yeah, that's kind of silly. That's much better. So, we need to be able to click to interact with it, right? Most obvious thing we can do. The other way to handle it would be when you walk on the square. We say, hey, when you walk on the square and face the direction. That would be one way to do that. The other way would be just click on the chest. It does its thing. So I think that's going to be the way we want to handle this. Part of me likes the idea of not having to click on the chest because that's one less click. But the problem is now each time you face it, so if I'm facing this way, that you can kind of step into the chest a little. If I'm facing like this way and I want to turn around and I accidentally do this and then this, it would say, hey, do you want to unlock the chest? And you'd have to say, no, I don't want to. And then you turn and keep walking. You can back up a little bit, if only because I'd rather not be inside of the chest I'm trying to unlock. Also, 2 may be a little large. I mean, it's nice and huge, and we'll just deal with it for now, but it might be a little large. In the future, we'll have to figure something out here. So, let's see here. I'm trying to think of how generic we can make the scripts that we're about to attach to this thing. We probably want some kind of item container script. And since it's an item thing, it's related to items, I keep dumping these into the this item folder, if only because I'm trying to keep some level of, I don't know, some amount of the ability to like keep things organized. It's obviously it only works so well. Trying not to sneeze. We'll see how well that goes. I might just have to really quickly like mute my mic. I need to do what JP does and figure out what the hotkey for mute mic is, so I can just hold it down, sneeze, and keep going. Because he's got that down. That's like muscle memory. He won't even be streaming, and he says that he's got the reaction of like, I'm gonna sneeze, quick, press the mute mic button, and that's actually messed with him in games that he's playing off stream. Because, well, obviously. So we're going to have a list of item instances. So that's the easiest thing that we're going to do. We just kind of stuff things in here. Now, kind of tempted to make this a list, just in case you decide you want to put things into the container. At the same time, this isn't going to be one of those games like Skyrim where it's like, oh my god, items everywhere, and your problem is not where you contain the items, but who holds the items instead, if that makes any sense. So I'm not too worried about needing item containers to be able to hold things you want to put in them at the same time. We'll see. I'll think about it. For now, I'm going to keep it an array, because arrays are nice and easy for me to handle. So you get an item container script. And we need to do a few things. One, when you click on it, we need to handle that. So I know I already have an on-click in the environment. I don't remember what it does or where it was. I know it had to do with it was like a button or switch function. Crud. This is what I get for forgetting or missing things or just taking a long time to work on this game. Global fog, no. Lockpicking window, no. Navigation toggle, I think, yeah. Okay, so here's the function I'm hunting for. I was wondering where that function went. Now I know. So, it's called on party view click. And it pretty much only happens when, you click on an object in the scene. Oh, does this have... Oh, it doesn't. Okay. We do need to add one more piece of information to this because you have to be able to click on it. We kind of need some kind of collider attached to it. And I don't know why that's sitting so low on the ground. There we go. That's pretty close to the actual model. Whatever. Okay, so let's see. We've got the item container. Now, I can't help but notice that I don't see the container properties showing up here. Really, Visual Studio? Are we back to that crap again? There we go. It shouldn't be called properties, though. It should be contents. I don't know why I said properties. That's really, really not what I meant. We're also going to have to handle any kind of animations that we want to mess with. Cool. It says check clicked. Okay, yeah, no, I am typing the weirdest things today. Check clicked. Not what I meant to type. Animator Boolean name. Let's see, what else? I guess I should call this like the open Boolean variable. Mostly because this is going to dive into the animator that's attached to the object. So we're going to say animator. So we grab the animator and we say, it's not get bool, it's actually set bool. And we do need to say, by the way, if the animator is not null in here, because there is a chance that we'll have some container like a crate that we won't be able to quite put our we won't quite be able to put the an animator onto and have it act nice. So it's easy for us to just kind of say, well, let's just, instead of putting an animator on it, just avoid this altogether. So there's our open Boolean variable. So you click it, it should open the chest. Nice and simple. I don't actually remember the name of the variable, so I'm going to look at the animator. It's just called open. Okay. Open. Cool. So when I click on it, it should now open. Pretty straightforward stuff. And this is all very basic. If you've got your architecture looking nice and pretty straightforward, it should be as easy as that to do these animated events. Where that was actually kind of quick, but at the same time, I don't really care. If you have a good architecture, it should literally be this easy to add new content to your game. When you have to start adding more scripts and doing crazy stuff, that's when you might want to rethink your architecture a little bit, because it's very easy, or it can be very easy, to over-architect or under-architect a game. That's one of the kind of the hardest parts of game programming, honestly, is getting your architecture in the right place so that when you open it up and start working on it and adding things to it, it doesn't become this thing that kind of explodes exponentially the moment you start working on it. You should be able to add new features and new content without having a ton of new scripts getting added. You'll notice I added one item container script, and this isn't just going to be for chests. This is going to be for pretty much anything you can click on and might have stuff in it. It's the easiest way to handle some of this stuff, and it's honestly some of the one of the best ways to do it is to just generalize scripts so you don't have a ton of tiny little specific ones. We're looking for a few good generic scripts. We can attach more than one, so we're going to add a trap script to this after we figure out how to get the item container UI to work. Because right now when you walk up, you walk up to this thing, you click on it, you say, yeah, it's open. I should now be displaying right kind of where my face is, honestly. A bit of UI that says, hey, here's what's in the chest, what would you like to take? Right? Or I could say, hey, you found this, and go item by item. Do you want to take this? Do you want to take this? Do you want to take this? Kind of the same way we're going to have to do something very similar after combat's over. We're going to have to do something like that for combat. So we should keep this in mind that this might actually be something that maybe we won't use this exact class, but some of the code we write could go into the post-combat, hey, you found items. What cool stuff do you find? Also, I can't help but notice that the chest is clipping into the crate back there a little bit when it opens. We have to be careful of stuff like that. Not the end of the world, but I'm going to shift the chest over, I think it's 2 units is what my grid spacing is on. Yeah. I have to make myself walk a little further, but it'll save me some... Okay, I'm still kind of walking into it is my only problem. Not that its placing needs to be great, but I'd rather learn the numbers and distances now than have to keep fighting with it over and over. Okay, so that looks better. Because remember, we're sitting on a pivot point, right? And the camera is actually back a little bit from that pivot point. So each time we rotate, we're actually a certain distance from the square that we should be standing on. Because otherwise, if you do that and you do a rotate in place, things kind of get a little difficult to handle when you're walking around an object or you want to see something up close, but you don't want to be right up against that wall so that the player's face is mashed into it. It's good to have a little distance. Alright, so, yay, we can click on a chest and it opens. Great. So how do we open up the inventory and say, which of these would you like to take? We've already got this trade inventory set up, although I think we're going to have to do something very different for this. Yeah. Very different indeed. Let's see. Look at the prefabs. I have a character window. I have a combat window, lockpicking window, NPC window. I think I'm going to need... I guess I could call it a container window. And what that essentially is going to amount to is just more UI. Always more UI. Container window. And remember, anytime I say the word window, I'm essentially talking about a self-contained piece of UI. So I can instantiate it on its own. I might have to do a little setup inside of it, but after I've done the setup, it should completely function on its own. And when you delete it, it should set the game state back to a good game state in which the player can keep playing. So the window itself is going to be responsible for a lot of pieces of information, and it's also going to be responsible for handling whatever interaction I'm looking at. So in this case, the container window actually is the item container and the contents within, and the players taking and handing things to different players. So let's see here. I'm going to want something similar to... And I just realized I have to zoom all the way out so I can do my 2D scene stuff that I need to do with the UI. Do I need the container name now that I think about it? Maybe. Text. Text with a specific font and a decent size and centered in multiple ways would be nice. Just, you know, little details. Excuse me. And there's our outline. We've done this 100 times before, but I'll do it again because it just kind of needs to get done sometimes. Some soft container text, container name. And let's just widen this a ton. I also can't help but notice that I'm off by a little. There we go. Alright, so we've got the container name, and we just need a ton of spaces, essentially, that have items. So the item slot UI, or the item... Man, I kind of want to try and use existing prefabs that I've made for this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to, but I really want to try to. Trying to remember what other games did in terms of looting. I know Baldur's Gate, it would actually pull up a mini UI that had all the things in there, and you could tell it what you wanted to take. What else? I'm trying to think of other games that had looting and stuff like that, like attached to it. Wizardry, I think, would have a list of things, and you could select or deselect stuff, hit take, and then pick the person who would take it. That's kind of an old school way to handle it. Part of me almost wants to do a click and drag, although that might be a little overkill if you've got a chest of like 100 items, and you just want to see like who has what and just kind of take things quickly and go. Because then you're click, drag, click, drag, click, drag, click, drag. You're kind of like throwing items at people, and then if one of them doesn't work because somebody's inventory is full, or they're, you know, it's too heavy for them, you then have to go into their inventory and fix it from there. So, Any other games that you guys remember that happen to have good inventory systems? I know I've said this before, but a good inventory system is kind of hard to remember because it's so central to the game, and you tend not to think about it when it's done right. It's one of those things where it's like when it works, you just kind of forget it works. And that's one of those things that it's not bad. It makes it difficult to remember exactly what's going on when you think about like what was a good inventory system. I actually don't remember. Not anything Bethesda, I'll tell you that much. Not Bethesda games. I gotta say, I looked at the Fallout inventory system and just kind of shook my head. It's standard Bethesda inventory management, and it's terrifying. I just was not a fan. You know what? For now, let's just do a bunch of item slots and drag and drop. I mean, that's kind of the easiest way to handle it. Yeah, let's just do it that way. So, we've got the container name. We also need a bunch of slots to handle this. Now, I've already got prefab item slots, so I shouldn't have to worry about this too much. Let's see. I gotta remember how to do this, or I could maybe just steal it from the other object that I know has them. That probably is the easier way to handle this. Character window, come here. I want you in here. Cool. You can go away now. Thanks. Okay, so this is what a inventory slot in the UI looks like. Now, there are some issues with this. The biggest of issues being the fact that it's meant to house a player inventory slot, not a generic slot within a item container. That said, this should still work. I might not want this piece of code attached to it. And I don't want the word backpack here, because that's definitely not the case. Okay, so slot 1. We're just going to do this nice and easy. Your slot 1. I wish you could enumerate things like this in Unity. I really, really do. Slot 2. And these are just going to be based on array indices more than anything else. And because I don't think I'm going to have a single container with more than 10 slots inside of it, I'm probably going to cut it fairly small in terms of what I think this UI should handle. Specifically, there probably should be a cancel button. I've got a few other things that I want to do. But aside from that, we don't want to go overkill on this, because it doesn't need to handle much. Dang it, party UI, get out of the way. So there's 8 slots, and that does not look bad. In fact, I can just take them all and kind of, that's centered-ish. I'll go back and clean that up later. Don't really care enough to do it now. But let's see here. So we've got the slots, and we now need to go through each slot and say, all right, cool. Now that this exists, let's put items that exist into each one of these. So this needs a few things. Let's see, we need templates, or a templates header, of which we will have a game object, which is our, come on brain, our container window prefab. I'm not going to leave the word prefab on there, that's totally overkill. But we do need that container window. I'm almost tempted to disable items that are empty, so you've already played the part of the klepto, taken everything out. What would there be left to do with said container? So I am kind of tempted to leave it. Like, just, by the way, for each if is empty is false, so we have a container empty boolean. And we're just going to quickly loop through, say, hey, you know, if you're all, if any of you aren't empty, we should know about it. If they are all empty, so if the container is empty, then we just return early. Actually, don't even need these. Cool. Early exit. I like early exits. You may have noticed I have early exits everywhere in my code. If I can execute less code, I tend to try to. So, on party view click, so now you've clicked it, we know it's not empty, of which that means our container in the scene actually does need to have something in it. Container contents, hey, let's put 2 items inside. Let's put... I shouldn't be placing this here in the item container itself. What I should be doing is going into the item container script and saying set the prefab from here. So what you can do, and this is something I haven't learned it recently, but I've been using it less recently. When you set a script to create an object, or when you create a script in the first place, certain things can be done on a per script basis instead of a per object basis. And so we can go in and say, well, you want a container window object attached to this script at all times. You'll notice that most of these don't actually have anything. This one has a key icon. I don't care. Some of the more, let's see, I'm trying to see if there's any like not so silly ones here that I could also set up. Okay, this one has a combat window that it wants to know about. Actually, that gets set by hand too, so none of these can do that except for this, which would explain why I haven't done it till now. But essentially, any item container should always know about the same prefab, and because both of them exist outside of the game, you can then link the two together outside of the scene, even. So anytime I now create an item container, it will already know about the container window, and I don't have to do that separately. Makes life very easy. Whatever. Okay, so open, size 2. We now have a couple items in here. That's great. The item container is going to then fill in stuff in the container window that it creates. So let's see here. So we're going to create a copy of the container window, and we're just going to dump it into the scene. We don't really care where it goes. As long as it ends up probably on root, we're going to be fine with that. And once we have the container window, all we have to do is find each of the slots and pair them with each of the container slots that we own. So let's see here. Actually, yeah, I'm going to use the I setup. So for each object in the array, thanks Visual Studio. Don't know what you were trying there, but thanks. Let's see here. Window.findChild.transform.findChild. I have to remember, anytime you do a find or you're looking for anything in the hierarchy, you actually should be looking specifically in transforms every single time. Let's see here. We've got the child. We now need to do 2 things. We need to find the slot and fill it with something. Is there anything else? Not particularly. I'm trying to think, but like it's just a click and drag operation. There really shouldn't be anything too crazy going on here. So let's see if we can repurpose any of our existing code and then go from there. So we have this set of item scripts that exists within our game. So let's see here. I know combat item won't really do it. This inventory item UI unfortunately assumes there's both an owning player and it assumes that there's all kinds of other stuff attached to it, and that may not actually be the case. Since this is just an object inside a container, there's no owner yet. And there's no way to pass this around inside somebody's inventory yet. We're just going to be handing it to somebody. And that's really all we're going to be doing. So this isn't really going to work for us. The slot UI is very similar. It works a little bit better, but it still assumes that there's an equip slot attached, and that's not the case. And this is kind of one of those instances of, I don't want to create a new script if possible. I'd like to create a script that either uses a subclass of an existing script, or I'd like to create a just an offshoot of an existing script. I don't want to write an entirely new script, because I know I've written the code to handle a lot of this before. So there should be a better way to do this. Question is how? Because in this case, the slot actually doesn't matter at all. It's only when you pass it to somebody and you do so correctly, that is when it actually should matter. And I just want to look something up now that I'm thinking about it. Let's see. First off, yeah, that's fine. I want to look in the, I think it's the character portrait that calls the player character function. Because when you do an on-drop command, okay, it sends a receive item call. So this we will definitely need to make sure it can handle multiple types coming in. Or we need to unify the type that's being passed around. Excuse me, guys, my mother is calling. Mama wants lemons. I have a lemon tree that's overdoing it this year. And so, I have the joy of bringing her more lemons on today's day of way too much food. Where was I? Oh, right. Player character. Okay, when he receives an item, when you drop an item onto him, he needs to be able to handle that. Or the other way to do this is we could have a take item that takes a different set of information, but I really don't want to do that because the rest of the inventory management stuff here is so dead stupid simple that I kind of hate to do that. Interesting. I'm going to look at the inventory item UI real quick again. So it has this item reference, and it's got the owning player, and then it's got all this other stuff attached to it. And I'm kind of tempted to just reuse this. I really am. Let's see if this would all work. So you click on it, you can inspect items. Yeah, okay, you could inspect an item that was inside of the container. I'd allow it. Merge might... Okay, merge is probably going to go away in the first place, so I'm not too worried about that. Discarding the item. That one doesn't make much sense. I might have to remove the discard stuff. But aside from that, I think I could make this work. Oh, remove item from inventory UI, though, has this scary call. Does anybody actually use this, aside from the discard function? Consumables also use it. Okay, that's unfortunate, but... but that's fine. Object Grid 3D has been an okay thing I've been using for a lot of my object placement, although I've come to like it less and less as I've been working with it more. So I'm kind of wishy-washy on whether I think that's a good library. We'll see. I continue to kind of mess with things and work with code. I also, because I get libraries that have source access, I rarely leave things alone. I'll tend to get a library and then I'll do a little customization and tweaking, just so it all fits and works in my system. Well, thank you for following and joining us, Panic. Great to have you along. I'm always happy to have more folks join us. Yeah, okay, the more I look at this, the more I kind of get frightened of some of the stuff floating here. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to keep adding more scripts, and then once I've gotten things written, it'll be a little more obvious whether I can use an existing class or if I should butcher one of the other ones that already exists and make it multi-purpose. For now, we're just going to go with a new script. So here's our item container UI, which means that player character has to be able to receive items two ways. We need to, I'm going to call this take from container. And we're going to do something very similar to this. And I'm just going to copy paste code for now because I'm a terrible person, but obviously eventually we don't want to do that. I did create that script, didn't I? Yeah, item container UI is a thing. Obviously there's no owned player here, so this is not a worry. Trying to think of anything else. Obviously, if the object doesn't exist, then we shouldn't be messing with it. We find the first empty slot. Where did I put that script? Item container UI. You do need an item instance. And we're going to call this the item ref, because that's exactly what it is. Is there anything else that I need for player character to recognize this? Not really. I already destroyed the UI object. I need to remove the item from the container that it's in. That is kind of big. So we're going to go into the container reference. Let's see, item UI dot container ref dot, let's see. Ooh, sorry about that. Scared me. You can hear him. He is not happy about that cat in the backyard. Are we done? No. Quiet puppy. I know. Oh, leave it. Leave it. He doesn't like cats. If that is not abundantly clear at this point, there we go. Say hi to the stream, Apollo. Oh, shush. You're not quite looking at where the camera is. You're looking at where the camera used to be. But close. Oh. Oh, shush. See? That's gone. Sorry about the noise, guys. That woke me up very quickly. Put the dog back. Ooh. No cat. All gone. That's the second cat he's seen this morning. He is on high alert now for cats. Which is unfortunate for my ears. Oh my god. Whiteland, that is a fantastic emote. The dog's gonna eat the neighbor. He wouldn't actually, but he definitely makes a lot of noise. He's one of those dogs who has a nice loud bark. And while he has little to no bite to back it up, he still has the bark that is loud and whew, that'll wake you up in a heartbeat. Let's see. So the only thing we need to do at this point, there's one thing left to do, and it's the fact that our item container, we need to be able to remove an item. So I need to put my little helper separators into place here so that I know what's coming from where. But we're going to make a public function, do some pretty easy, obvious stuff with it. This will be remove item. And we'll use the item UI as its base. Essentially, you'll just hand it the item, and it's going to do the heavy lifting. So we know a few things. Let's see. So we look at the item, and we know that the name is going to have the information in it that we need. And we need to substring off of that name. We're going to start at, let's see, it's SLOT space. Yeah, so we start on the 5th character, I think, would be the start index. And we just continue to the end after that. And then we parse that string, because remember, still a name. Names are strings. We parse that over to an integer, and now that integer should tell us what slot we should be messing with inside here. At which point we say container contents. We find the index, and we do a pair of things to it. We say, cool, the definition is going to be null, and the stack size is going to be 0. So we just dunk all information inside of it, and we're going to be done with that. So what do we have to do in this case? Well, let's think for a moment. The item UI, container reference. I'm just thinking of what the hierarchy looks like, but whatever. From the container reference, we get the item container, and then we just remove the item. And that should do the trick. That should wipe it out of its memory. And that should be the last we hear of it, because the moment we call destroy on that empty object, that should do the trick to remove the model of that view from what's in there. Cheese lover, that is one sexy beard. Why, thank you. I've been cultivating it, feeding it range-free everything that I've been trying to eat. It's so weird to try and eat with a beard when you haven't had a beard for a long time. But thank you. I'm glad you guys appreciate the beard as much as my girlfriend does. That should do the trick. Should. I did just realize that maybe I put that function in the wrong spot. Party. Let's see, if I look at the party UI, and we look at the portrait itself, yeah, so there's a drop function here, but it's... First off, this is weird, because the drop function and the pointer down don't look like they're correctly tied to things. And that's not a good sign. Means that I can't open inventory when I try and use this, which is gonna, yeah. Can't open the inventory there. That's not a good sign. Also, I only have one drop function, so I need to handle that separately. So, let's say we've got a pair of helpers, because that's really what some of these are. Right, these two are just helper functions. And I'm just going to skip the step of doing the separation of object here. And what we're going to do instead I don't know, I'll call it portrait drop. Base event data is this. If the item UI is null, sorry, is not null, we're going to do something and then return. That thing we're going to do is, by the way, going to be the receive item. And now we just need to clear this up so that this takes a, what is it? What does it take? Inventory item UI, I believe, is what I had in here before. I'm actually gonna hold down Control Z just so I can see. I don't want to mess this up. Yeah, inventory item UI. Good. Bonkin, thanks for joining me, man. Glad you could. Enjoy your food. I may or may not be here in a while. I honestly don't know how long I intend on streaming today. I've already been at it for an hour, but I don't really have anywhere to go either. So, I may or may not stick around for quite some time today. So, we've got the helper functions set up. So now all we need to do, where did I put that function? Open, here it is, portrait drop. So we either received the item, or we then say, okay, if it's not an item UI, then maybe it's a item container UI. Uh-oh. You can hear the little wolves in the background. Apollo. Hey. Quiet puppy. I do and say that more often than I'd like to, but I understand that dogs and barking are a natural thing. There we go. So now we just have to set up our portrait drop so that it can handle multiple events. Also, I probably should set up this whole inventory opening mechanism. Just maybe. Let's see here. The upper left character. We're going to use the player character 1 for both of these. With the player character using a, let's see, on portrait. So on click, we're actually going to handle, where is it? Open inventory. Versus on the drop, when you drop an item into their inventory, we're actually going to go for the portrait drop function. There we go. And as much as I hate to do this on one character, but not the others, yeah, I'm only going to do it on one for now. I can fix it on the others when we've got this complete. So, let's see here. We've got... okay, so we've got the character tie-ins working. So that should be fine. We need to get a bunch of other tie-ins going, though. We need to, especially when it comes to figuring out how we're going to populate the inside of the container. That's kind of the biggest thing we have to do, because we have to get this portrait drop function not just hooked up, but also usable within the inventory. So here's our container name. We don't really care about the slots themselves. What I do care about is what's going to end up in those. So we need to create a prefab that essentially takes one of these, and we're going to create an image that is going to use, if I set this up correctly, there we go. So we're going to use some anchors to make sure everything's sized correctly. Also, I'm just going to put the X here as a good default so I can look at size and kind of understand how it looks. That looks good. And then we're also going to add in a new script that is our item container UI. Cool. And this is a prefab that I should be able to just make copies of after this. Now it's an item prefab, so I dump it in my item folder alongside pretty much all the other items. If I can, item prefab should go into the items folder. Hello. Let's just delete it and do this again by hand. Oh, because there's already another object by the name item UI. Fine, item container UI. I'll get a little more specific. And this has the context menu and all that other crap attached to it. I don't want all that in here. So, do I? No, not yet. Not yet. This is just going to be a quick click, drag, and drop. That's all I want here. So, we need our using Unity Engine.ui specifically so that we can have the what is it? Pointer down handler. I actually need to figure out A, what that event is called, and B, where that event comes from. I think that comes from event systems. Yeah, it does, of course. Okay. We'll need the UI anyway, so I'll leave it there. Crud. I don't actually know what this looks like, so let's just... tell it to implement the interface. There we go. So on pointer down. So you click on it, and we begin a drag, and we essentially end a drag as well. Actually, I'm noticing there's no... Okay, there's a drag handler and an end drag. So while you're dragging it, we just want to set its position to wherever the mouse is. Once again, quick actions lets us just implement the new interface. I hate the fact, though, that it always adds a new exception to the center of it. So on drag, while you're dragging the item, the mouse position is pretty much the only thing we care about right now. Is that information in here, or do I have to hunt it down via the input class? Position. Current pointer position. Great. So while you're dragging it, do that. When you drop it onto the... when you drop it onto the object, let's see here, on end drag, I think, is the other one. Let's just implement the end drag handler. Once again, quick actions. Give me that interface. And stop with the not implemented exception. Dear Lord, that's incredibly... I don't like it when other things type code for me. I really don't. At least not when it's not the code I want to be there in the end. So when you end drag, we're going to set its initial position back to where it should be. So for us, that just means transform dot... I'm going to set just local position. Because what we're doing is we're setting it back to the parent. Whenever you click and drag and let go, if you haven't dropped it on a character to give it to, then it really shouldn't be something that we can mess with otherwise. So if you don't, we're just going to snap it back to where it should go. Let's actually get this to fill up the container window interface, since, you know, that's kind of important to testing the rest of this process. Let's see, item container. Somebody clicks on it. We generate the new window. We go through each slot, and then we say, first off, if it's empty, we obviously don't want to generate anything in that slot. If it's not empty, we know that we have a definition and a stack size that's not 0. So that makes our life a little bit easier. So from there, we just say, what is attached to this darn thing? We know there's going to be a container UI. I'll just call it item UI. The item UI needs a couple pieces of information. Specifically, it needs the container, so we're going to hand it a this pointer. And then it also needs the item it's going to be holding. So we're just going to pass a reference across, because we don't want to make copies of this. Because otherwise we'll start making copies of items, and that's just bad all around. So we've got the item reference, great. We've got the container reference, also good. We also know there's an image attached to this thing. Now, that requires us to add in the UI namespace. Not the end of the world. We grab the image, and once we have the image, actually, we could just do this in one step. Image. Okay, we're using sprites, that's fine. Equals for the actual item UI. I don't want to call it item UI, though. It'd be a I don't know, item template. I'm just going to use the word template this time. There we go. That does the trick. So I generate a new object. We have to do the requisite parenting, otherwise it'll look weird. So item UI transform set parent. We set the parent to the child slot. And we also, I just want to make sure that this looks right and doesn't have any weird transforms attached to it. So we're just going to set the local position to a 0. Cool. Let's try it. This should work, unless I did something terribly wrong. So we open it, and terrible things happen. Unassigned reference exception. What did I miss? Oh, you need... Interesting. So for some reason it doesn't understand what the container window is, or what an item template is. The item container UI. Okay, both of these I should be able to set in the script itself. So, item, inventory, slot, item container. There we go. Okay, so both of these are now set. So all I should have to do at this point is go into this chest and tell it, by the way, you should revert this value and this value to whatever is in the prefab. And it should have no trouble doing it, but for some reason it is. So I'm just going to set these by hand. God, okay. It's being weird. That's fine. Where is that container window? That's actually what I want. Container window goes there. Okay. Ta-da! Not bad. Actually, don't remember putting text there, but that's fine. Did I leave too much stuff attached to this container UI? If I get a little too crazy about my click and drag, I tend to accidentally download it. I don't want to download a copy of that prefab. Whoops. So what's going wrong? Why is this item UI should be the item container UI? There's our problem. Okay. Although it did bring up a good point when I clicked on it. Weird. Okay, let's unmaximize this for a moment so we can actually look at what's going on. So there's the item. And you'll notice that the transform is all over the place here. This should actually be zeros all across the board so that the item fits within the space, but for some reason it doesn't want to do that. Also, why is that item larger than the space I've tried to put in it? Why is the scale weird? Oh boy. Curiosity is kicking in. Okay, so it always does this weird scaling thing. I'm not particularly happy about that fact. Prefabs, if I grab the container window and dunk it in the screen right now. Okay, no, these all have weird scales attached to them. And they really shouldn't. Okay, let's fix that, because that's for lack of better words, idiotic on my part to leave these floating around. And actually, it makes me wonder if something's actually wrong with the character window. If these have some weird scale issues going on as well. But no, these all look fine. So it must have been when I copied and pasted it that it got wonky. Because I can't think of any other time when the scale of these objects would have been messed with. Okay, we still have more than a slight problem. We still have a big issue in the fact that here's this object, here's the container, and it just doesn't want to show it off. So that's what it should look like. So what am I doing with my inventory items that I'm doing differently? Let's see. There's an open inventory function. And then okay, so it handles its own contents for the most part. So inside the character window, when we say start, I have an entire function for creating item UI. Great! Set parent and set local position. Both are in here. Also, I do realize that those are unnecessary. I'm removing them as I find them, but it's one of those things where, because I didn't know it before, there's a ton of them in here. I used to think I had to say GameObject.instantiate every single time. Turns out that's not the case. So when I create an item, there's a bunch of interesting bits and pieces in here, but the weirdest of them, I'm doing this all the same as far as I can tell. Oh, wait, I think I know. Here's the item container. Here it is generating it. No, we set parent first, and then we set the position. Why would it be setting the size? That's bizarre. It should not be doing that at all. If I were to take this container window and put it into place, and then I was to also take from items the item container UI and just parent one here, that looks fine. That works just great. So why does one work and not the other? Also, these don't need to be raycast targets, by the way. We can turn that off safely. Inventory item UI. Do you do something weird in your start function? You do. Ah, there's our issue. I'm not sure that should be happening in here. Alright, let's try putting it out in the container window first, or the item container itself, and then we'll go deeper into the rabbit hole should that not work. Okay, so issue is still showing the same exact symptoms. So we have to try something not terribly crazy, but it's just something I'm not a huge fan of. We're going to create a start function and set its transform inside there. What I'm thinking is that Unity, when you place an object in scene like that, proceeds to do a couple things. It resizes it based on whatever it thinks it should, which I don't know why it would be resizing something right now, but okay, it's resizing things. I can get that. I have to set it back when it's done. Obviously, though, that's not working. Okay, let's look at the item UI real quick. I'm just going to dunk one of these into a slot. So this one works just fine. And the reason why is it probably doesn't use, this doesn't use anchors. That's probably the difference here. So in order to fix this, we're going to tell the item, the container UI, don't do that. We're going to say your size is 48 by 48. And we're just going to do this to all of these pieces. That'll probably completely fix it, as much as I don't like that as a solution. That's how it goes. How it goes. Now, I should have been able to give this item to the warrior. So that's next. Why did the drop part of drag and drop, right? It's in the name. It's pretty necessary. Why did that not happen? Portrait drop. Detect. Wow, detected. That's a terrible. Detected. There we go. Better. Actually, I don't know why I do that. I've got breakpoints I can attach to Unity just fine. I don't understand why I feel the need to still try and debug using text only. We do that, drag, drop. Not working. I'm guessing that it's moving itself back too quickly. So its end drop event happens first. It moves itself back, and once it's done moving itself, it then proceeds to say, oh, by the way, I'm not over this portrait anymore, therefore the drop event is not going to get triggered. That's completely idiotic in terms of how things should work, but I get it. I understand why it does it that way, so we just have to figure out how to shift this end drag event to the end. So what I think I'm going to do here, I think this is the easiest way to handle this, is so what we're going to do, we're going to call this replace position, or place, replace, whatever. Reset position. There we go. That's the name I like. So we're going to call it reset position, and we're just going to create a coroutine to handle this for us. So what'll happen is we say I want to end drag, and I should move myself back at the end of frame. Or I guess technically this is, I'm going to move this back next frame. What then's going to happen is the reset position is going to kick in, and at the end of the next frame, if it hasn't been shifted yet, if the player character hasn't consumed the event, then it's going to move itself back. So I click, I drag, I drop. For some reason, it still isn't a fan. I don't know why that would fix it, but I'm just trying something for the sake of testing out timing. Okay, so this drop event is still just not going off at all. The player character, as far as I can tell, isn't receiving the event. It makes me wonder if the event is attached correctly. If I look at the party UI, the upper left character's portrait should have portrait drop is the name of the function. Here's portrait drop, so that's fine. So why, when I drag and drop this item, does it not trigger? What about it is not working correctly. Clearly that works just fine. Let's just do something for pure morbid curiosity's sake. Let's try some science. Let's not reset this thing's position ever. So just on end drag, don't do anything. I don't care. We can leave the items wherever we want on the screen. So now, hey, look, they can go anywhere. Okay, definitely is not taking when I send it to the right people. So it's not even that it's not getting called at the correct time, it's that it's not getting called at all. I remember having trouble with the drag and drop system last time. I really hope I'm not going to start having trouble with it again. The drag handler and the end drag handler. Okay, let's look at the inventory item UI, because that I know works when it comes to drag and drop handlers. So let's see. On end drag, okay. And the event trigger is set correctly. And there's no reason why I don't think these two would ever not collide. It actually kind of makes me wonder if the inventory stuff doesn't work either. Let's just toss this breakpoint back in place and see if that triggers it. I, of course, have to attach to Unity, otherwise... Okay, so that works, right? So the portrait drop works for a item UI, which let's just look at the innards of that real quick, just so we have a good understanding of what is going on here. There's an item with some text and a stack count. It's got a bunch of stuff attached to it that I don't particularly care about, but it looks like it should work. I wonder if the inventory item UI has a on end drag event. It does, and it looks like I'd say I'd like to pull the audience, but I honestly have no idea what's going on. Oh, this. I do think I know what's going on, and I think it's incredibly stupid. Oh my god, I hate this so much. Okay, stop debugging, stop playing. I think I got it. When you have a item that you're dragging and dropping around, your mouse is over the item, and because when I do the drag event and I move things around with me, the image that is attached to the item that I am dragging around is intercepting the drag and drop event. So it's sending the drop event not to the portrait, it's sending the drop event to the item that I am dragging, which is just painful in so many ways. That is exactly what's going on. Let's test this theory. Obviously, just should take a moment longer. where all we have to do when you start clicking on the object, you say, by the way, the raycast target, yeah, stop accepting that as a raycast target. So be able to raycast through the image that we're dragging around on the screen. Alright, click, drag, hey, look, something broke. Which is great, because now we know code is getting called. It looks like parse does not like what I pass to it, and that's fine. That means at least the function is getting through to the player class. So here's our portrait drop function. And we know we're taking the item from the container. You know what I just realized? I think... Where's that substring function? When you take it from the container... Oh, that happens inside the container's remove item. This should not be 5. This should be 4. It's slot space, and we need to make sure we start right after the space, I think. I'm going to put a breakpoint and step into this anyway, just to make sure. But I think that's how I need to hustle that. And then this will work, because... Thanks, Unity. I swear, that's going to be my new thanks, Obama. Like, thanks, Unity. Okay, still getting issues with this string setup. I drag, I drop. Okay, we have the item UI name. Oh, weird. Really weird. Okay, so I handed it the container UI. That's not correct. So that's going to cause an issue. Remove item. You're being called from player character. And you're not playing nice. Take from container. Okay, so this is the item being dragged and dropped. So it doesn't actually have the slot attached to it. So we put the item in the first slot possible, but what is actually happening here? I should be able to check parenting still for all of this. So this should not be just .name. It should actually be transform parent name. Yeah. Once more with feeling, shall we? Once more into the maw. I'm crazy, we're making games. That's pretty much what that boils down to. Alright. Okay, so there's the transform. Here's the parent, whose name is slot0. There we go. Okay, and this looks like space 0 now. That's not going to parse correctly. Although it looks like it did. Funny. I wonder if it clips it when you do that. Okay, so he's got 4 health potions in a single backpack slot. So let's just test this out. This is, I think, 2 more potions. We need to add some stack text to this. So I'm not seeing the new item showing up in his inventory. That's kind of the weird part of all of this. Because if we look at the inventory slots, we have the empty one, and then we take the item reference and we stuff it in there, so that should be fine. Our player character in question should indeed be receiving the item. So, okay, the item reference is a stack of 2 health potions. The empty slot is slot 10. We start at backpack, we go to the end, we say, yes, we've got, okay, so item, yeah, So that should be fine. So if I look now at item slot 10, it has a health potion of size 2 in it. Do I need to copy the item? Because the moment I destroy the game object, it nukes that information? That seems like a weird thing to do. I should still see the 2, but I should see a dead definition if that's the case. So let's close the party UI. Let's look at character number 1 here. We know it's in slot number 10, which is not... His backpack slots are all completely empty. It's as if he's never received the item. What is going on here? I'm definitely taking... Okay, inventory slots, player character dot inventory slots. There's the index. And I take the reference item and I stash it in there. So that should be fine. Yeah, no, this should be working just perfect. I don't know what is going on inside of this that's causing it to be a complete pain. I'm not going to destroy the item just to see what it does. Not call remove either. I'm just going to kind of leave it there, let it pop back into place and see if that gives us any leeway. Although this is acting so bizarrely, I honestly have no idea what's going to happen. Okay, so it is the fact that we are destroying the item that's doing that to it. So we call remove item. Oh, that's what's going on. It's this crap right here. Okay. Okay, so just for those who are curious why this was going wrong. Back here in the player character, this is a object reference. So essentially the information that it holds, think of it like a pointer. This reference, when I store it in the array, is still the initial class that got generated when I made the item UI in the first place. So really, it's not a new item sitting in the inventory slot. It's the item that's in the container is now also in the inventory slot because there's a pointer to it. So then I would say, well, when I remove item, we set the definition in that class to null and we set the stack size to 0. Not good, because what that ends up doing is that ends up clearing out that space. And that space has a pointer to it inside the player inventory, the player character inventory. So that is essentially also setting the definition and stack size of the object in the player's inventory to garbage as well. So what we should be doing is something like this, where we set a new empty instance of an object into that array, just to make sure that nothing is there. The other way to handle this, if we didn't want to do that, is to set a null inside of it. I'm trying to avoid using nulls for the item instance system because it's marked as serializable, which means that Unity then generates empty objects as its null object. It's a terrible, horrible thing to do, but it's how Unity handles it, so this is our way of kind of clearing objects out of the inventory. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it is the way that I think it should be done. So, this should take care of everything. So, here's his inventory. 4 health potions and nothing else. We grab, hey, it's now 4 and 2. Now, eventually we should be able to do something like that, and not just trade places, but say, hey, if they're the same exact item, we should merge them together into the same thing. We're not doing that right now. Okay, so one last piece of information, and then we know we're done with this. The item container, we need to be able to close it. So prefabs, here's our container window. And our container window is simply lacking a button. We'll call it the leave button. Text. I'll just leave it at the word text. We'll switch the font out. Make it readable in size. Maybe drop the size of the button itself, because that is kind of huge. And by kind of, I mean stupidly huge. Okay, there's our button. This is how you leave this activity of looting things. It shouldn't just say button. I'll call it close because seems like a decent name. And the close button, when you click it, should be able to grab the container window and just close it. So we just call destroy. Except I don't see a way to destroy things. Detach children, close, no cigar. Not that cigars are good for you or anything, but seriously, what? Okay, I've done this before. I need a script. Or, instead of having a script, I could just have the container UI do that. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it gets the job done. Right? Yeah. Oh, but the container window doesn't actually have a script attached to it. Oh my gosh, why? Yeah, these all have objects attached to them, but this does not. Okay. Really? Am I going back to having a destroy me script? I feel like I am. Okay, well, luckily this is a small script, and it's just a UI piece, so I don't care about it a ton. Void easiest script ever, but I just am kind of amazed that I need that. Whatever. So the container window is UI destroyable. The leave button simply calls destroy. Ooh, I just realized. Actually, can I do the broadcast message? No, not what I wanted. I see this cancel invoke, but I don't see an invoke. So I don't think... I mean, if I could broadcast a message and just say GameObject.destroy, that would do the trick, but I don't think I can. I'm pretty sure that's not how that works. Yeah. Don't think that's how that works. I'm looking just in case. But yeah, I don't think that's going to do the trick. So we're just going to call destroy. That's fine. Don't care. Gets the job done. Cool. Oh. Ooh. How do we close the container? Because we have this item container floating about, right? And when it gets closed, we actually need... Okay. Better idea. Public void close container. So we have an open container when you click on it. We have a close container function that does the following. I have a much better idea than this stupid UI destroyable script. So, first off, the game object called window is actually going to be swapped to a window instance. And we'll just be using this from now on. Although I think I only use it in one place, so whatever. When you say close container, we're going to do a few things. Not only are we going to destroy the window instance, but also we're going to grab the animator, and if the animator isn't null, we're going to just set that open back to false. There we go. That's so much better. So much better. Where'd that stupid destroy script go? Because that should not exist. Just something that simple and tiny, shouldn't. UI destroyable. No. Go away, script. Yes, reload all. So when you click that button, where is that prefab that I just made and threw away? The leave button. Okay. So the only thing we need to do here is set this leave buttons on click. Let's see here. Leave button on click. Well, we have the window instance. So it shouldn't be too hard when we open the window to then attach some extra information here. So we have the window instance. We say, okay, we find a child. It's going to be called the leave button. It's going to have a component called a button attached to it. That button is going to have an on-click event, which, by the way, when you click it, it should close the container. There we go. So we add a new listener called close container to the button, and that should handle this event here. Fingers crossed that this works. Oh wait, I don't care about that. I'm just going to close it. I open it, and I can't... Oh, I can keep opening it. Okay, that's something we also need to keep in mind. If you click on it again, if the window instance is not equal to null, we're just going to skip all this, because we know that the container's open. We know that it's already there. We don't have to keep fighting with it. So we click, now I can click on it all day long. It's not going to create more objects until I hit close and then open. Okay, cool. And if I hand out an item, close it, and open it again, you'll note that there's still only one item in here. So I can hand this... Actually, I can't hand things to anyone other than the warrior right now. Oh, look at that. I can click on it, it'll open, but it doesn't have any loot inside. Okay. I know what's going on. We need to take the animator call and shift it after the other early exit. So if the container's empty, we should just say, by the way, there's nothing in here. Sorry. And eventually we'll want to add some text that says you click on it and it says sorry, it's empty. There's nothing here. If I wanted to be really lazy, we could just let you open it and see that there's nothing good on the inside. I think for now that's better than having them click on it and have nothing happen. Also, that's less code, so less things to go wrong. I can always appreciate less stuff going wrong. Okay, one last thing I want to make sure I don't need before I call this feature complete. And that is this silly reset position. Let's see if we can go without having this IEnumerable thing in here. If it's not the case, whatever. If it can be fixed, though, I'd like to fix it. You guys are quiet today. Either you're all full of food already, or you're like busy watching a football game or something while you have my stream running. Because I know my viewer count is actually not bad. I've had worse. I've also had better, so hey. But let's see here. What was I testing? I don't remember what I was testing. I was testing my ability to have an empty treasure chest. Oh no, I was testing whether or not I needed the coroutine, which I don't. So cool, less code again. Is there anything else? Oof. This is a nice feature. I like having this in place. Trying to think if there's anything else that I really want to dive into. We just hit hour number 2 of today's stream. Don't know if I want to dive into hour number 3. Mostly because I kind of hate to start a feature and then end it early. So what I think I'm going to do, I'm just going to mess around with content for a little while. You guys are welcome to stick around. I'm not going to talk nearly as much because, well, it's content. And I have trouble talking quite so much about content as I do about code. If you guys have questions, feel free to ask. I will be messing probably with that stupid tavern, getting it cleaned up since I changed the scale of everything. So if you have any questions, now is definitely the time to throw them my way. Also, if you haven't done it yet, please hit that little follow button in the lower corner. Always nice to have more people along each time. Yeah, jalapenos, I am not doing a 12-hour stream. I do have places to go and food to eat tonight. So don't worry about that. I definitely will be going at some time in the near future, but I think I'm going to spend a little time on content. And then call it a day. Mostly because I need to do my stomach stretches so I can fit more food into my stomach. That's how this works, right? Let's see. Tavern. My tavern, which is in 100 different pieces right now and probably looks hilariously terrible. Yeah. Whoops. It also looks like my columns didn't get properly resized. So let's fix that. I think those are all sitting in my Alchemist's House pack. By the way, none of this art is mine. None at all. So if you're curious where it came from, I'm happy to send links along of like, hey, here's where I got all these cool things. But just keep in mind that all of this cool stuff, none of it I have made myself. So okay, I've set all the rest of them to a 0.75 scale, so I should do that for all these pillars as well. I should probably do it for pretty much everything in this pack, honestly. It's what you get when you have to deal with multiple packs. When things are different sizes, you just have to do the work sometimes. When you find something like this that is out of place or mishandled, you have to just clean it up yourself sometimes. Okay, so I guess my other curiosity is whether or not the tables look monstrous inside here. or if it's just me. Because when you look through a window, I mean, look at those tables. They look huge. They might actually be huge. They might not be. I'm not really sure. Let's get a grid working in here, though, so I can actually walk around the inside of this place decently. I would appreciate being able to do that. Let's see here. There's the node of which I need to recalculate it anyway, because apparently... Okay. Just making sure that some of my nodes look correct and that it'll be easy to walk right up to this door like I want to be able to. So we copy and paste. Remember this terrible thing we have to do? 15, 16. So this will let me at least step in the door, figure out what it looks like from the first step inside. And what I think I want to do is have a clean walk straight to the back. So this will go 18, and I recalculate. And then this will be 20, and I recalculate. And let's see, this will let me walk up to here. I'm going to put one more in just for the sake of exploration, and because I like the idea of having 100 different, or actually this is the 101st grid node, so I shouldn't be too... Okay, let's fix some of these. I really need to figure out why this grid node stuff is not working 100%. It works like 90% of the time. It's just enough that it's not bad enough. I feel the need to fix it immediately, but it is bad enough that I feel the need to... Ooh, and I can't walk up to this door. I try to, and it keeps me at kind of an arm's length. There we go. Okay. These look fine. They look like they should work. Okay, there we go. Now I can walk around inside. This is what I've been wanting to do, so that I can see what it looks like on the inside from a game point of view. The problem is you can't edit it inside the game. Otherwise, all those changes just straight up disappear the moment you try and do stuff with it. Where are the stairs? The stairs also need a resize. And considering these are in alpha order, I shouldn't have to ask where is X, because I just feel kind of dumb when I do. Mostly because it's alpha order. I should know. Should know doesn't mean I do. This means I should. None of that. None of that. Apply. There we go. And I suddenly understand how they made this prefab. I was curious. I was like, why do I only see one set of stairs? Well, here's why. This set of stairs is actually cleverly two pieces of stairs that are just matched up very nicely. So that when you do something like this, it looks like the same set of stairs. Let's see if I can do as masterful of a job of lining this up as they did. I don't think I'm going to be able to, but we'll see. We shall see. You'll notice I keep grabbing one of the squares and not the actual pieces themselves. It makes it a little easier to find and to fine-tune things that should exist on a certain plane instead of just grabbing them and breaking them in their own way. So that looks off by a little bit here. That's the only thing I don't like, is if you're walking up the steps, suddenly the steps kind of jolt to the side. But the problem is, if I do this to line up the stairs, I can't help but notice that the banister stops lining up. Actually, the banister's not really lining up much as it is it? Come on. I can do this. Oh, well, that also might be part of the problem, huh? Okay, that looks lined up on this axis. Let's see if we can line it up on this axis. I'm mostly measuring based on this attachment here. I don't know if that's actually gonna work out for me. But honestly, now that I've got that banister lined up, it actually looks pretty friggin' good. Looks like it lines up just right. So I'm actually going to tell this set of stairs, by the way, that's correct. And I'm going to apply those changes to the actual prefab that they gave me, just so that I don't have to keep fighting with that. This is the part that's going to be more than a little bit annoying, is resetting all these, because it took me a while to get these in place the first time. Because if I don't do it quite right, you see there's this like sliver of space between the two, and that just looks bad. But if I put it too close, I start to lose space on the inside of the tavern each time I do that. And so while it might not seem like much initially, it kind of adds up after you've done it more than a few times. Okay. There's that. That means I probably have to bring this entire wall in by more than a little bit. I'm just going to fix this side first, and then kind of see where I have to go from there. And this is kind of the part that I enjoy, but it's kind of a guilty pleasure more than it is like coding, where I know not only do I enjoy it, but I know I'm good at it. So there's kind of this sense of pride attached to anything I code, versus when I create environments, because I'm still learning. And this is something I hopefully find is kind of true for anything and everything that I work on that I'm not good at. But there's just kind of this learning curve that you have to handle and be okay with not having things be perfect. Otherwise, you're going to do what I'm going to do and sit here and spend way too long on stupid little details that I don't think anyone's going to notice for the most part. Whoops. Also, you're going to press buttons that you don't understand and things will break. That happens a lot too. Okay, so here's our front wall. And actually, I'm going to start the game late in the day. I need to figure out how to do that, of course. I think this starts it at noon. So if I want to start it later in the day, I'd do something like this. Which now, okay, game starts at 6 o'clock. It also says that it's missing the time of day camera. Even though I'm pretty sure the party UI should have a time of day camera attached to it somewhere. There's the global fog. Huh, okay, well. Of course, I need to figure out where in heck time of day camera exists. Oh, camera main script. Maybe that will help. Okay, so as the lights come up in this place, uh, I can't help but notice. I like the light placement here, almost. I think I can fix that a little more. Let's see. If I want to really know what this place is going to look like, I guess I should just set it to late in the day and stop mucking around. So here's what it's going to look like at night. And this is really when I want this tavern to light up. I'd like the game to honestly start at night, so you see the cool stuff going on in the lighting system, even if it's not incredibly in-depth. I like to show off things that I know look good. It's one of those things you learn to do early on in game dev. If it looks nice, show it off. Especially in indie game dev, when honestly the amount of work you put in per unit of playtime is obviously going to be different than somebody who works at a AAA company and is getting paid lots of money to make these games. You and I who do this as hobbies are going to find that you got to figure out where you want to spend your time, because there's just not enough time in a day to get all of this done and to a certain quality. And I know that's a bit of a cop-out. Honestly, I could spend years on the same game probably and do a decently better job, but you just kind of have to keep in mind, do I ever want my game to come out? And if so, how long do I spend on it before I start to kind of throw ideas out or get sick of certain details? I know I'm spending a ton of time on a single detail of this place, but honestly, this is one of the main big areas that you start in, so I'd like it to be somewhat nice, so that when the players start the game, they don't feel like they're playing some cheap indie game, that they feel like this is a nicer, higher quality game than they might otherwise have just paid for. And since I now have this nice flat surface, I actually kind of want my lighting to be attached to that flat surface, as opposed to trying to get it to work on the on the curved surface. There we go. Also, you'll notice that these are very basic lights. There's very little actually attached to them, and that's because the lights themselves have no shadows. To have all of these lights casting shadows would actually probably be too much for most people's video cards. And so what we want to do in order to save people's systems from burning up in a fiery ball of heat is we're actually going to spend some time and just make sure that not all the lights are going to use up all of your GPU time. Also, is it just me, or does that look really uneven? Okay, well, I'm gonna keep going. No rest for the wicking that turns on and off, so that the game, if I turn off these two outer lights, you'll note that everything gets a little darker, but it doesn't look that bad still. I'm kind of curious, if I turn off the inner lights, I actually don't remember which ones are the inner lights. Yeah. Okay, so I do definitely want to keep the inside ones. And maybe eventually I'll probably end up baking this down into a light map so that it doesn't actually take up any time, so it's just a texture lookup. I think that would save me a lot of time. Also, that table is at my eye height, so either we're still playing a group of halflings, or I need to change the scale on that model. Where's that table? I still think the idea of playing a bunch of little kids acting like they're playing, but that's not really what I want to dive into on this one. Costume Quest was a fantastic idea. I'm really not in the mood to completely rip off the idea of playing a game in kids' imaginations. Table, you, my friend, are not actually as large as you think you are. Cute, nice try, but you aren't. Hey, Moldy Moss and G-Man Gavin. Glad you guys could join me. Just kind of getting to the point where I've done some code for the day. I'm doing a little bit of content before I call it. Let's lower this ceiling. Because obviously, having a ceiling up that high is not doing me any favors. It'll help my environment a little bit if my ceiling is at the correct height as opposed to being way too high. Did I 3D model these? I wish. I wish I had the skill to do stuff like this. Granted, some of the columns are fairly simple, but no. None of the 3D model work here is mine. Everything here is either purchased or open source art. The open source stuff is almost exclusively from opengameart.org. Or is that .com? Nope, it's .org. opengameart.org, which I like to peruse on a fairly regular basis just in case something pops up that I can use. Although I'm looking at it right now and it looks like just a bunch of mostly garbage. People throw a lot of trash up, unfortunately, on that site. It's great hosting space for things that you think, yeah, anyone could use. But if you look at it, not many people are going to use a lot of these. It's just how it goes. And I'm not too excited about most of it. Now, every once in a while, you do get some good stuff in here, which is why, obviously, I have 3D models that use it. I just looked through again, though. Nothing new that terribly interests me. Let's see here. This window... Actually, did I... Just in case I haven't done that yet, I figured I'd apply the changes from one window to all the rest so that it fixes all the rest of the windows without any extra effort on my part. There we go. Just fix up some of my prefabs as well. Also, some of these lights on the inside are not that great. I really want to brighten these suckers up a bit more. Yeah, especially since there's only two here. You two should be providing a majority of the light in this situation. So, let's see. There's one light lamp, there's the other. So there's 1 point light. And there's the other one, and we're just going to increase the range on these. And this is one of those cases where actually having shadows might help if I do something like this, because you'll note that the connection of the ground and the pillars doesn't look all that great without shadows. If we look at this without shadows, and then add shadows in, the shadows actually add a ton in this case. Mostly because it kind of smooths out this hard edge where the shadow feels like it should be, but it's kind of hard to pin down, like, why is there not a shadow here? Or what makes this feel wrong? And the thing that it feels wrong is the fact that this hard line is here without a shadow to go with it. We could make it soft-edged shadows. I'm never terribly excited about having higher resolution shadows inside, if only because that tends to mess with the quality of the shadow, and it's just such a tweaky little thing. Jalapenos Bud asking, what are some good hashtags for game dev? You pretty much got the three major ones. Game dev, Unity dev, or indie dev, and Unity 3D are kind of the three to go for. Aside from that, it really depends on what you're going for. I know I've done hashtag, I think, dungeon crawl a few times, and that's been a pretty good one. Trying to think of other ones. But for the most part, yeah, you kind of nailed the main ones on the nose. Let's fix up these outer walls, because it looks incredibly silly to have all these gaps in the wall. Also, actually, before I do that, let's take these pillars, dunk them into the tavern, and also, I want to look at the grid again. See just how wide this building is, because right now the building is, it looks like it's coming out to about 5 steps wide, so I can walk right up to the wall, from wall to wall in 5 steps. That's not bad, honestly. I actually kind of like that size. Oh boy. Okay, here comes the interesting part. We're gonna have to nab all these. It's hard to do this in the dark, honestly. I should turn the time of day back to something a little more useful, probably. But one thing at a time. One thing at a time. Okay, yeah, time of day definitely has to change. I can't see crap right now. Okay, I think I nailed that pretty closely. We'll have to figure out what to do with the ceiling and the stairs and all of this, but that shouldn't be too bad. Also, the chairs and tables and things that I meant to have sitting either outside or near walls now look kind of funny. Not the end of the world, just more work. And since we can, I'm actually going to grab the party UI and turn it off for a moment so that I can do this symmetrically. I appreciate doing less work or smarter work if I can. Okay, so we've got that set. Now we grab these 2 pillars and bring them over. Okay. Now, you 2 come over. I know this is incredibly exciting, right? I'm sure you guys are riveted to the screen as I sit here and make a make a tavern. Granted, this is going to be a fairly important point in the story. I mean, this is kind of the starter area, so I need to make the starter area and the hook of the game as pretty as possible. Otherwise, players are going to kind of look at the game in general and just kind of go, it looks decent, but I don't want to play it. There are other things I could be spending my time on. And that is not a reaction I want to my starter intro area. Epic Beard Man, hello. I'm working on gaining your Epic Beard status. Right now I only have a... it's not quite epic. Maybe legendary is the next step down from epic. A legendary beard. Or maybe I could settle for amazing. Sexy. Lots of good terms in here. I hope you do have an epic beard to actually back up that that username. Do you go to beard offs? Is that how you prove your epic beardedness? I'm actually not sure. I'm new to this beard thing. Oh, dog. Whine, whine, whine. All puppy does. Whine, whine, whine. Makes me wonder if this is what level designers do all day. Sit here and I won't say play, because that's not fair to them, but if they actually do this kind of same stuff when it comes to working on levels and getting information from levels kind of plugged into the game. Okay, first off, let's get this giant hole in the wall. Do I want to do that? Let's see. Let's see if we can figure out the spacing for this. Because already I don't think... Well, I need to figure out the spacing on these again. That much is going to be obvious. I think I might have to go with 1.5 for its dimensions. Uh-oh. Dog alert. Yeah, go for it, jalapenos, bud. Link away. Which I'm going to use the moment as well to say that for those of you who are here for the first time, go ahead, hit that follow button if you like what you see. I usually do coding. Right about now, I'm actually doing something weird for me. I don't usually do content on stream, but I don't mind doing content on stream. It's just one of those things where normally this is a code-oriented stream. Most days I tend to... I like to contribute in my own part of the world, which is in the... in the game dev space more than the gaming space. There we go. Get this all lined up. I kind of want to put some kind of overhang over the front door. I feel like any good tavern shouldn't have all of the... it shouldn't have all the rain just dropping onto the front door. Seems kind of sloppy. I could put a balcony above it. That might work. Although the balcony seems a little large. I don't think the size matches there still. Balcony is... yeah, you guys are huge. Cool. Let's try that again. Model, prefabs, interiors, balcony. That actually looks much better. Then we've got what looks like a balcony edge. Is there any kind of overhang here? The ceiling might have... ooh, that looks kind of overhang-ish. Kind of looking at all the pieces I have available to see what's there and mess with what I need to in order to get this to look nice. Because there's some degree of like, well, it looks okay, but no, must look nice. Must be worthy of a game. That's really the hardest part of game dev, is just ensuring the quality of your own work. That can sometimes be one of the most difficult parts of this whole process. Okay, let's get this wall shifted in, since I've done the other axis shifting. Get the rest of the wall to follow it. In we go. Now, my dog hears the other dog outside. That's what's going on right now. I was wondering why he was making noise and staring at the backyard, but not going completely ballistic. Usually, complete ballisticness is reserved for cats and other things that are on the proverbial puppy shit list. Can I get this to fit the whole thing? Not quite. I'm actually missing by a little bit. Maybe if I extend it all ever so slightly. There we go. I did start playing League again, out of more curiosity than anything else. Try out the new characters, see the new patch, that kind of stuff. That was an interesting change. That, and I'm still doing my StarCraft stuff. Even though I've made my way through the campaign completely at this point, I've still got a little bit of room left for getting stuff done in the co-op and playing a little bit of the multiplayer, just so I don't feel like a complete incompetent if I ever do that with anyone else. The reason I keep staring at the sky, by the way, Unity has an interesting zoom system, and so what I tend to do is I'll zoom in, but if I want to zoom in further and I don't want to lose the sensitivity, or if I don't want to gain the sensitivity, instead of zooming in and looking down, I'll look up and zoom out. And what that does is that keeps your sensitivity pretty low and allows you to do these big, broad, sweeping moves, as opposed to if you just zoom in a ton, suddenly your moves are these little things. And I like to be able to at least keep some level of control over my camera sensitivity at all times. Not perfect, but it definitely keeps me a little better in control of what I'm doing. Okay, so we've got kind of the main tavern area here. I'm actually going to temporarily remove the roof, just so I can see. I mean, I guess I could switch to an orthographic camera while I do this work, but So let's see here. We've got this back wall, and I think I've got enough space, right? It looks like I've got a decent number of tables. I almost feel like I could have more tables, or I could scoot some of these away from the wall so that it's not quite as weird feeling to have all of these kind of pressed. And if I extend it back a little further, what that's going to give me is space for a bar more than anything else. It's not going to give me a ton of space for other things, but in the case of having like what feels like a better bar area, I think that would do the trick. So what that means is a couple things. One, it means we kind of have to refit and reshape everything. Not the end of the world, just difficult when you want to click on certain objects. Okay, I click on there, I click on there. Good, there we go. Not what I meant to hit. There we go. And I just shift this whole back wall right up against this section here. Where are the drunken dwarves? We're getting there. We'll have to fill in the world with living objects later. I want to start with the static objects, but yeah, the living objects kind of come next, and those are the big thing that adds that feel of having kind of more world here than it might seem to be initially, if that makes any sense. Transparent. Oh, I know there's some way to have a glass shader in here. Oh, it's under the FX. Haha. There we go. That looks better. I want to be able to actually look into the tavern. I think that is a really cool idea. But yeah, the living objects are kind of the last thing for me to put in, because the moment that goes in, that kind of assumes that the rest of the world is now in this good enough state that I feel like it'll hold up to having living creatures added to it. And I want to make sure that that's actually the case before I go and add that stuff in. And right now, if I have gaps in the wall a mile wide, I don't really feel like the world would hold up to having living characters added to it. Or at least more complex characters. I say living, anything that's non-static, really. If I can't do static environment, I definitely would not trust myself with non-static environment. Okay, there we go. Nothing worse than making a perfect inn and then having to widen all the doors for the dwarves. There is definitely some level of scale that has to be taken into account when you're working on this stuff, so that you don't do silly things like what I just did. Interesting. I've got what looks like a decently sized gap here, and I can't really tell you where it's entirely coming from. Okay, so it looks like this piece of wall can go further over. If I compact my walls too much, I end up with not just silly spaces in between them, but I actually have to reorganize these by more than a little bit. There we go. And this, man. See a little gap there, so let's clean that up. Okay. Finally, these last two. Closer. But I still feel like I'm missing way too much here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so my guess is going to be that this and this have different widths. And so I have to make up for that somehow. Let's think about this. How would I do that? Well, one way to do it is to nab another pillar and use that essentially as a spacer. Not sure I like that one, though. I'm kind of tempted to use just one of the, like, square planks as a spacer here. Yeah, I think I'm going to use a pair of these to keep the whole place from feeling like it's too small for its own good. The joys of content creation. This is actually, for some people friggin' love this part. I'm actually a bigger coder more than anything else. So for me to be doing stuff like this feels weird. Also partially because I don't tend to get to this part in game development. I tend to get so caught up with the code that I don't think much about content. Which is weird. If you think about games, most people say, yeah, well, the first thing you do is you make content. Versus for me, not actually. The first thing I think about is code, and then content for me tends to be the second-class citizen. Which is unfortunate, because that also means that whenever I make a game, that's kind of the first thing, not to get cut, so to speak, but it is the first thing to have a somewhat lower quality than the rest. And obviously, in games, content is king. You really should never ignore your content. Okay, I see a slight sliver where I can see through here. So let's clean these up. Define content, artwork, levels, story. That's really what I'm talking about. When I say content, I'm essentially saying not code. All the rest of the game. Where did my... Oh, it's right here. There. So you'll note this does a pretty good job of centering some of this, and it looks better. The question is, does it look good enough? Let's try actually walking into the place and see what it looks like. What? Game. What's going on? Oh, I turned off the party UI. That's why. I can't turn off the party UI and then expect the game to be happy. Okay, so this looks decent. Looks like a nice inn. Kind of want to see it with the lights. Some of the lighting being messed with as well. Since right now an open roof tavern is not exactly something you run into terribly often. So you can see the lights coming up inside. Looks pretty good. It has its dark corners. That's kind of on purpose. Okay, so I need a better way to get to these stairs and to handle the stairs at night. That's really the only thing that I'm worried about at this point. If I take the time of day and dump it to nearly midnight, this is the one thing that looks kind of the most out of place. Luckily, that's easy to fix. There we go. Okay, so we've got our tavern with its stairs. Let's re-enable our ceiling just so we can figure out what more we need to do to get this working. Enable the entire ceiling. Kind of curious, if I do something like this, where I set them to 1, so this is what their standard scale looks like, then have 1, 2, 3, 4, and will a 5th one do it, really? Will that be just like perfect width across? It actually might be a bit too much. You can see how this hangs over the edge slightly, even though there is some space in between each of these. Okay. I need to figure out how to do this ceiling. Also, I need to set the time of day back to something reasonable so I can see what I'm working on. Yeah, there's a little spacing left in here, so there's some wiggle room, but for the most part, it's also helpful to not have sunlight bleeding through your ceiling. Otherwise, it looks a little silly. it's just a little too much. You can see it hangs over the edge just slightly enough to be annoying. I wonder if those are full-sized as well, or if these should be everything marked ceiling. That is still, wow, there's a lot of things marked ceiling. Like a lot. Technique for shader-based dynamic 2D shadows. Yeah, no, I watched that a long time ago. I was looking at that exact tutorial back in college. That was a long time ago. I actually had my own shader for a while in XNA that was doing the exact same thing that is, and it was really, it's just so much fun to put stuff like that together. It takes a long time to get working, but when you do have it working, it is fantastic. Let's try some of this stuff that has like edging and other stuff attached to it. Because I feel like this should be... Whoop, not what I meant to grab. This should be something that shouldn't be too crazy or difficult to work on. Excuse me, dog. I owe you a clean pair of pants. I owe myself a clean pair of pants. Holy heck. Every time he goes off. And of course, he keeps seeing cats. Like, that's the only reason he keeps doing that. Is cats keep wandering their way into my backyard. Let's see if we can help that problem out. There we go. I know it darkens the room quite a bit, but we'll see if that does anything for the ambiance. Okay. So I see what they're doing here. This is just a two-sided quad that they just attach some boards on either side to. So I'm not too terribly excited about a lot of this. But what I should be able to do fairly easily is we can set these to be the right size. Yeah, sorry about the dog, guys. I know it's a little... I really need to set up that noise gate so that it just stops doing crazy stuff like that to you. Close? Closer? There we go. That actually looks pretty good. It's a weird size, but... if I can split this place into thirds... and then do something like this... I'm so close, it doesn't quite fit. Ugh, that's annoying. It's actually really annoying. It makes it most of the way there. Let's center this as if it should work. Oh, or it does work and I just messed up some numbers. No. Grabbing all the things marked ceiling and shifting them to the bottom so that I can more easily mess with all of these at once. Let's see here. Yeah, okay, so 2.1 is fine for these. 2.3, 2.5. I have this feeling that I can downsize all of them a little further and still be good. I think I've found my magic number now. I'll have to figure something out for this little chunk over the entryway itself. But for the most part, I think the rest of it's been dealt with. There we go. Nice, cozy little tavern. I do want to set up a bar here in the back so you have somebody to talk to, make it feel like a barkeep is actually handling the place. But aside from that, that's not too bad. We've got a couple dark corners. We've got some places where light can potentially pass through. But otherwise, it looks like we're in pretty good shape. Let's see. The only other thing I want to make sure is that there's enough space that it feels like you can walk up to the stairs and then walk up the stairs themselves. For that, I need to poke at the grid some more. Yeah. I'm just thinking about possibilities of how to handle the grid node inside this building. I was kind of hoping there'd be like a smart way to handle this. Because you'll notice this walks you right up to this back wall. That's actually not what I want at all. So like this right here, this connection through this wall is not something I'm a huge fan of. And I need to handle this just so that they can't walk through this piece of wall and say, I can walk through the wall, this game's dumb. Because clearly that's how game critics work. But you understand what I mean. I think this is the one I can turn off. Yeah. And now I should probably head to node 92 and turn off its west link. What are grid nodes for? Grid nodes are used for the party's ability to move about the space that I'm creating. So as each of these nodes is generated, it allows the party to walk to a certain position in the space. So for example, if I want the party to be able to walk to the center of these stairs here, which that looks mostly right, but not quite. So I can adjust it and say, well, I'm actually going to have them walk here. And do this space instead. Or if I want to shift this stairwell back and have the grid node match, then I could do that as well. So this should now allow me... Actually, let's just do something real quick, because this is getting incredibly annoying to work with. These nodes here don't want to connect terribly well. So I need to figure out which ones they are. And tell them to recalculate, because... that's annoying. Okay, these all look fine to me. That's the funny part. Nope, this looks right. I don't know. I'm just losing my mind. That's all. And it's not always that there's these, like, a couple terrible nodes that, like, oh god, it never works. It's like there's a node connection missing, and it just breaks my brain when I try and walk from area to area. So, let's see, what else? Let's try actually walking back in. That's so much better, so much cleaner. Although you can see I've already broken the one on the front door, so it lets me walk up to it without being able to walk in to it. All I have to do is recalculate that one, and it's fine, but still, it breaks often enough that it is incredibly annoying. Like, I could now walk up 2 tables. I can even go so far as to make it look like I'm sitting on the table. But this one is also broken. So it's just, like I said, it's annoying enough of a system when it doesn't work that you have to fix it on a fairly regular basis. Okay. Alright guys, I have passed the 3-hour mark, and I do have things I need to get ready for Thanksgiving today. Ooh, I like how that lines up. That looks nice. So I'm going to end here with my bottom floor of my tavern being complete. Thank you guys for joining me so much today. For those of you who haven't done it yet, I can only recommend once more that you hit the follow button in the lower left corner of the stream to let you know every time I go online. If you want a little more notice than that, then hit follow on the Twitter account that is linked below this stream in the description. I tend to put some timings on that do a little better. 15 to 20 minutes, an hour, sometimes the night before I'll mention when I'm going to go online if it's going to be a weird time. But other than that, I tend to be online Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So hopefully that helps. Antid has a really good suggestion too. I should make a plugin that goes through all grid nodes and just recalculates them all. What I need to do is have an override for some of these grid nodes just to make sure that nothing changes. That's the big problem. Because not all of these can be automatically recalculated. Some of them, a very rare few, need to be done by hand, and those are the ones that tend to break an automatic system. So I'd need an automatic system with some control attached to it. Otherwise, it wouldn't quite work. But yeah, that is what I plan on doing eventually, if I don't come up with a better tool altogether. So thank you again, guys. It's been great fun. I hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving, and I will hopefully see you all tomorrow. Don't have work tomorrow, so I have time for a nice long stream. So we'll see if we can squeeze another one in tomorrow. Thanks again. Have a good day. See you later. Bye.